blood pumping on a Monday morning, but now we're going to go live to our speakers for our next session. Hopefully we can bring them on now. And this session is going to be all about how to make your hybrid events more inclusive and engaging. So please welcome your two speakers, Sonali Nair. Are you with us, Sonali?
Good morning. Thank you
Good
so much for
morning. We
having
can
me
hear you
here.
loud and clear now. Good to have you on board. And we've also got from EMC3, Mr. Josh King. Josh, how are you?
Very well, thank you. How are you doing?
Looking forward
Awesome.
to this topic. So if you're both prepped and ready to go, take it away.
Fantastic. So I'll jump in to welcome today's session. We're both really excited to be here talking about how to make your hybrid events more inclusive and engaging, a topic which is so important. So if we just pull up the deck and we can start running you through, our top tips for making your experiences more inclusive and engaging. So a quick introduction. So my background is I'm the sales and marketing director for EMC3. Now we're considered to be one of the world's leading creative agencies who specialize in virtual and hybrid event production. We've been lucky enough over the last few years to work with some of the world's leading brands, including LinkedIn, HubSpot, Google, and Miro, and we've helped them produce some incredibly immersive and engaging digital experiences. And we've learned a thing or two along the way. Now, during today's session, we're going to take a quick look at what a hybrid event is, the top reasons why brands are choosing to go hybrid, and then we're going to be sharing some top tips and insights with you, which you can implement to ensure that the experiences that you're designing are more inclusive and more engaging. So, first of all, what is a hybrid event? Now, it's one event with two experience arcs. When you're producing a hybrid event, you have two sets of audiences. You have two parallel attendee journeys that are happening. You have your in-person attendees and your online attendees. And there's key touch points where your two sets of audiences are going to be able to interact and engage with one another. You can liken it to people who actually go to a football match and watch it in the stadium and those that watch it from home. They're two very different experiences, but they're both participating in that same event together. And with 97% of marketers saying that they're confident that hybrid events are going to become more prominent moving forward, it's crucial that as planners, we're putting a framework in place to ensure that the experiences that we're designing are accessible, inclusive, and engaging. Now, why are brands opting to go hybrid? Now, there's numerous reasons why. But first of all, increased reach and attendance. By adding an online component to the experiences that you're creating, you can interact and engage with a much larger, globally dispersed audience. And when done in the right way, the experiences that you're creating when offering a digital component become far more inclusive and accessible. There's also greater flexibility with hybrid events. Now, I'm sure some of you at home have experienced this in the past. You're desperate to attend two events, but one's taking place in EMEA and one's taking place in the US. So logistically, unless there's an online component, you simply can't be at both events at once. Also, when delivered in the right way, hybrid events demand far greater engagement from your audience. There's incredibly powerful sponsorship opportunities because you're not limiting yourself to just online sponsorship opportunities or just in person. It's an amalgamation of the two. And some sponsors have seen incredible ROI from online events, and they're massively encouraging for brands to keep that online component for them. Now, this is such a hot topic right now, but with hybrid events, you can have a significantly reduced environmental impact with the events that you're creating. Now, for such an incredible industry, we've not been the most sustainable over the last few years. And over the next 12 to 18 months, we're going to be held to much greater scrutiny than ever before. So it's important that we can actually start to reduce the impact that we're having on the environment. Now, the next component is reduce travel times and costs. Now, hybrid events really help to democratize the event space. So, being able to reduce the cost for attendees, for instance, helps those from a lower socio-economic background. So, it's fantastic for that component. And there's greater ROI from well delivered and planned hybrid events. And the data and metrics that you can capture are so rich, and then that can help be leveraged to drive your strategy for future events, future marketing campaigns. So there's so many cool reasons why brands are opting to go hybrid. Now, hybrid events have changed. We're quite lucky as an agency. Our first hybrid event was actually back in 2014. But at the time, it was very much a one-way flow of information, and there was little to no interaction between the online audience and the in-person audience. Now, the platforms have done such an incredible job, and they've come on so far, which now means that when you're planning a hybrid event, it really is two equal audiences catered to in a different way. There's high levels of interactivity between the two sets of audiences, and it's a really, really powerful platform for people to deliver events. And here we're looking at the slight differences between what those audience journeys look like. But of course, there's still those key touch points where they're going to be able to interact and engage with one another. And the reason that we wanted to share this is it shows how much planning has to go in place. So well delivered hybrid events take more technological expertise, more logistical expertise, and more planning than ever before. And when we look at that from a perspective of diversity and inclusion and accessibility, it shows how much you have to consider and the meticulous level of attention to detail that you have to ensure that the experiences that you're creating are inclusive and engaging for all. Now I'm going to hand over to Sonali, who's going to be talking about how to make your event more inclusive and more engaging.
Thank you, Josh. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us at Event Tech Live London 2021. It's great to be speaking with you all today. My name is Sonali Nair, and my pronouns are she, her, and hers. I'm coming to you live from my home office, which is also my toddler's room, with this tiny bed behind me and a beautiful abstract painting on a textured oil canvas. And I'm an Indian female wearing my favorite blazer. I'm a global events marketer at OpenText, marketing chair at MPI Toronto, and board member of MPI Marketers and Experience Designers community. Talking about hybrid events and making sure how we can create a more inclusive and equal experience for all, I would like to start with something that, a discussion which we have been having for a decade. And we have finally come to a conclusion that diversity and inclusivity is as important in events as in the world. Every event planner is now expected to have an inclusivity element in their events. Um, but unfortunately, many event planners mistakenly assume that with DEI initiatives, they have to focus on just one single representation, such as race or ethnicity. And if they widen the scope of their event to include disabled people, they will be accommodating a minority of participants. Well, a study by CDC suggests that 1 in 4 American adults have a disability, which means those with disability are the largest minority group. Isn't it time that we rethink and recreate events to be more inclusive? And going hybrid is one step towards giving your event attendees the freedom of choice. And as Josh rightly mentioned, that is the way of democratizing our events. efforts around inclusion in events have recently been increasing, and part of this is ensuring event accessibility. People living with disabilities are often neglected when large shifts happen, and they were certainly not at the forefront of the industry's discussions when it came to transition into a virtual world. That being said, hybrid events are naturally more inclusive than in-person events in many ways. For example, hybrid events allow for its attendees to choose their experiential journey. Virtual aspect of hybrid event tends to be more affordable and doesn't require any travel. And many organizations have leveraged higher attendance rates throughout the past as a result. However, we're still lagging when it comes to including deaf and blind participants or those with learning disabilities. And there are still a lot of things that planners can do to make them more accessible. In September 2018, MPI launched an initiative to determine the current state of inclusion in the global meetings and events industry. The mission of this project was to determine how and to what extent event professionals plan for inclusivity and the associated knowledge gaps. Reading through the report made me realize that the primary driver of unconscious bias, which keeps our events far from being accessible, is the halo and horn effect. When event organizers ask for post-event feedback and they see a couple of attendees responding to accessibility questions, they see that with a halo effect and feel that their efforts are complete. Nothing more is required. On the other hand, when organizers do see a critical feedback from one attendee suggesting assistive features beyond closed captioning, they see that with a horn effect. That raises questions like budget constraints or scalability. What they do miss is a great opportunity of including a wider pool of audience, perspective, and business that is choosing some other event over yours because of lack of empathy and inclusivity. Have you noticed in planning, we tend to emphasize the cost of addressing diversity and inclusivity? But what about considering the cost of not having it? Not having a diverse team will lead to exhaustion for the planning committee and the attendees because unless we have someone in our team to explain the critical nature of that particular event element, it's easy to overlook it. And if you don't have a diverse planning committee, you can always hire contingent workers that represent those diverse groups or hire inclusive event strategists and consultants. Consultants can help committees develop inclusivity guide that can be a rinse and repeat for more than one event. You can partner with diverse vendors, suppliers, service providers who will help in breaking that knowledge barrier and in many cases give advice on more collaborative experience. When you have a diverse representation from internal stakeholders and your audience, you have a greater opportunity of executing content and thought diversity. And I believe content crowdsourcing is another way of giving your audience the event canvas to let them shape and design their experience with your brand and with your event. Or creating a task force, a panel nomination, pre-event design survey to learn what matters to them the most. It's a great way in crafting the event experience, and it is more likely for them to attend and engage with your brand. Talking about what are the key reasons people don't attend? Inclusivity actually starts with recognizing these barriers and taking a step towards fixing it with just one thing: empathy. I remember reading this quote in one of Brené Brown's book on empathy that said, sympathy creates separation and empathy makes connection. So when you see someone stuck on the road and you say, oh, I'm so sorry to see you in this situation, that's sympathy. But when you say, let me stay here with you until we find some help to get you out of here, that's empathy. So even though every day we get these new event communication tools, attendees and their communication barriers remain the same. Just because we are giving our attendees the option to choose virtual or in person or hybrid in this case, that doesn't make an introvert attendee hyper interactive. That's why a consistent and continuous plan of communication should be in place for attendees, which bridges the gap between not having two standalone experiences, but just one experiential journey for all attendees. Like for those who want to engage with other attendees or speakers or hosts, whether proactively or anonymously. Anonymous interactivity features like live chat, audio networking bridge are often overlooked when juggling the experience between live and in-person aspect of hybrid setting, because we put more focus on the tangible metrics, and when instead we should be focusing on giving a more comfortable environment for everyone so that they want to engage and continue their journey with your brand even after the event concludes. And of course, consistent social shout-outs, frequent 10 minutes break for each event hour to allow people with learning disability the time to process your content will also help break the barrier of attendees' attention span. With this, I will now hand over the mic to Josh as he will take us through some of the key reasons why people don't attend in the in-person setting of hybrid.
Thanks, Sonali. Well, I think to continue from the amazing work that Sonali's just covered, uh, I think what's becoming apparent is the importance for us as planners to adopt a nuanced view towards planning, which heavily focuses on diversity, inclusion, and accessibility. We can't be apathetic towards it. We have to be proactive. It can't be an afterthought. And there are lots and lots of different reasons that people don't attend events. It's not just physiological or neurological. It can be socioeconomic, as we alluded to earlier. It can be because of things like COVID as well, which has impacted all of us as planners over the last 18 months. It could be things like fear of flying, or simply just life gets in the way. You're looking after sick loved ones. So it's so, so important that we're being, as Sonali mentioned, empathetic towards this and putting a framework in place which focuses on accessibility and inclusivity from the outset. Now, to create truly accessible and inclusive events, it happens, it becomes integral to the planning process. It starts way before the event. It's the language you use in all of your pre-event comms. How many events have you been to where it's the same speakers, the same session design, and there's a real lack of diversity in the speaker selection? We have to be focused on these things from the outset. Now, one of my favorite things that we've been working on with the team is following the ARIA guidelines for building websites or platforms which are accessible for all. Now, ensuring that all website text is easy to read for those that are visually impaired and that there's image descriptions, providing large buttons on the website, making sure that there's plenty of space between them for people with mobility impairments, following a logical heading structure to aid in navigation for those that may struggle with navigating websites, Ensuring that a website is accessible via keyboard, again, for those that can't use the computer mouse. Using descriptive link text rather than generic text, again, enabling people that struggle with navigation to easily navigate your website. Providing video captions and transcripts, so that can be for the platform itself, your pre-event emails, all of the comms in the run-up to the event, to ensuring that your event design is truly inclusive. Ensuring that, well, really trying to actually get away with the ticket purchase or registration time limit for those that do struggle with that kind of thing. And then again, that actually leads on to the next point, which is ditching capture. So capture can be used to alleviate your website getting filled with spam. But what it does do is really, really inaccessible for those with low vision or blindness. So considering those aspects. And now I'll hand back to Sonali to touch on a few other components which you can focus on to make the experiences that you're designing more inclusive and engaging.
Thank you so much, Josh. I completely agree that the language that we use when promoting our event, it has to be representative of the audience, and it can definitely not be an afterthought. And one thing that will help you make sure that your DEI initiatives within your event, they are not afterthought, is to add them and make them a substantial part of your event strategy, your overall organizational strategy, which makes sure that your DEI initiatives, they do not fall through the cracks during contingency times. And starting talking about the language and promotional material that you use for your events, what's the first thing that comes to your mind when you think of traditional stock photos for your event website or your social banners or those email banners? The type of images that show up when you search for the word event, attendee engagement, or event attendee, you would rarely see a brown, black, or disabled person represented in those stock photos. So if your event is expecting attendees from diverse backgrounds, then they need to be represented on your webpage and your promo materials. 3 Black-owned and founded stock photography websites, they're doing some amazing work in showcasing the real world we live in. And I love um, those websites, Nappy, TONL, and Create Her Stock. So if you are really looking to represent your audience on your event collaterals, these are your go-to places. And this is my favorite. Your tech stack. It is your foundational building block for your inclusive event experience. And carrying on what Josh highlighted here on some of the best practices to make sure that it is equal and it is equitable for everyone who is attending, either irrespective, the virtual or in-person aspect of your hybrid. A mistake we often make is and that gets in the way of inclusivity or accessibility is the wrong order of operations. Choose your event tech based off of your event strategy and not the other way around. 3 things that will help you plan efficiently without any surprises when sourcing event technology are detailed RFP with clearly communicated requirements and highlighting the features that are a deal breaker for you and are non-negotiable. Ask for a proposal that outlines the technical limitation of certain assistive technology features. Yes, it, when you're looking to plan a hybrid event and you have the virtual element, we have to accept technical issues with a grain of salt. But when one functionality can make or break an attendee's event experience, it must be accounted for. Ask for a full stack demo that showcases your attendees' experiential journey. Empathy has to be at the center of inclusive event planning because that's where it starts by recognizing the barriers and taking a step toward fixing it. But yes, it's easier said than done. How do we ensure empathy while choosing event technology? Some of these cutting edge features will ensure your live stream content is accessible and inclusive. And you will need three things: live captions, live descriptions, and a good audio environment. Real-time and on-demand language translations with systems like Interprefy and Worldly will empower your international attendees to follow along and even engage with discussions in their preferred language. One of my favorite nonprofit organizations that I truly respect, it's Respectability, a nonprofit which is focused on advancing opportunities for people with disabilities. They have put together an amazing guide that offers great insights into creating everything from evites to presentations to emails that can be accessed on screen readers. For example, sans serif fonts for your print materials. Which all fonts should you be including when you want to print off some material? Make sure your audio is clear. Poor audio quality can make it really hard for people to access the event or use noise canceling apps called CRISP. Set aside budget to include a sign language interpreter on the screen, but you would still want to keep the closed captioning because not every person that is hard of hearing will be able to understand sign languages. Platforms like Rev, alternative communication services, and ASL captions are some of the good options to give you a start. And remember that not everyone learns the same way. So if you're sharing a pre-recorded video, be sure to describe what's happening in the video and add captions using programs like Final Cut or Adobe Premiere or apps like Clips, Caption This, and many more. All of these features will help you make your event content more accessible. And these might not be perfect in delivery, but it's a great start. And as technology advances each day, the more we ask for these assistive features, the more focus these tech giants will have on their advancements. If you're not sure exactly what kind of assistive requirements your attendees will have or will need, registration forms are great to ask people exactly what will help them have a great experience. But moving forward with event planning, planners must measure the effects of attendee acquisition and its diversity as you make critical planning decisions. So beyond the list and database, who is your target audience? Evaluate your event goals and their impact upon your DEI strategies. Consider who's in the room when you're making these critical decisions. Are the decision makers you have in the room diverse in perspective? How has your target audience been engaging with your content, your speakers, and events in the past? Answers to these questions help you design an attendee persona that considers different perspectives. Engage with a diverse organizing committee, both internally and externally. Together, you can look for opportunities and flag possible blind spots. For instance, avoid booking your event on a major religious or cultural holiday. A quick Google search is all you need to avoid this mess. Include speakers from diverse backgrounds, professions, and demographics. And reiterating Josh's point, too often we see the same faces presenting at events, and typically they say the same things. A diverse panel not a panel. A diverse panel will present new ideas and provoke more thoughts, making your audience feel more presented. With that, I will pass the mic over to Josh.
Thanks, Sonali. So I'm pretty conscious of time, and as you can see, there's so many key considerations when trying to design events that are truly inclusive and accessible for all. So I'm going to cover these last few points pretty quickly, just in case there are any questions from the audience. But another key consideration, particularly if you have a globally dispersed audience, is accommodating time zones. So you know, we've seen it historically that some big US companies will just put on their virtual hybrid events within a time zone that suits that audience. Well, it's crucial then to at least make that content available on demand for those that can't realistically engage with the content during that specific time zone. So that's a crucial component of designing inclusive events. And then in terms of flexible event design, again, we alluded to it earlier, but varying your session designs is crucial. People learn in different ways, and allowing for people, some people prefer one-on-one workshops or roundtable sessions, whereas others prefer keynotes. So the events that are designed in the best manner have that flexibility. You know, lots and lots of events that we attend seem to have the exact same session designs. The agendas look pretty much the same. It's always the same topics. Push boundaries, be innovative, and ultimately you will drive greater ROI and people will remember your events. Now, when we're talking about hybrid, of course, we need to consider the in-person element as well, not only the online element. So how can we ensure that the in-person component of your hybrid event is demanding that excellence in terms of inclusivity and accessibility? Well, ensuring that the building entrance and access points are accessible by all of the by the widest demographics of people, so people with disabilities can easily access the venue. Ensure that there's good parking, and of course that there's disabled parking on offer at the venue. Ensure that the venue offers automatic doors as opposed to doors with door handles, which can be difficult for people with certain disabilities. And then the venue design. So it's absolutely crucial. Venues with gravel or trip hazards or lots and lots of gates, they're not the most accessible venues. So it becomes again a key part of the planning process. Avoid steep inclines and opt for venues that offer disability ramps. Even in terms of the networking spaces, ensure that the tables and counters that you have can easily be accessed by people that are in wheelchairs, for instance. Provide a variety of seating styles. Offer pre-cut meals on the menu for those with motor disabilities. And then, if you're offering room blocks, ensure that there's accessible rooms for those with disabilities as part of the room blocks on offer. Is absolutely crucial. Now, to wrap up, and if there are any questions, uh, you know, it's so important that you put together a D&I and accessibility strategy from the outset of your planning process. It can't be an afterthought. And then again, as part of the emergency planning and contingencies, it's crucial that you're considering all of the attendees, so those with disabilities as well. It cannot be an afterthought. So if you'd like to connect with Snarly or myself on LinkedIn to consider to ask us any questions or to continue the dialogue with either of us, what you can do is take out your phone right now and is scan the QR code. So if you take a picture of that or scan that QR code right now, you'll be able to connect with Sonali on LinkedIn. So I'll give that a couple of seconds. And then if you do the same with myself. So this is a topic which truly matters to us both. It's something that we're really, really passionate about. And just like with sustainability, our industry is going to be held to greater scrutiny moving forward. It's the same with D&I, inclusivity and accessibility. You need to focus on these elements. Hybrid events and virtual events are great because it's brought the world closer together and made us feel more connected than ever before. But if we don't focus on these core components, then what you're going to be left with is a marginalized portion of society. So thanks very much. I'm sure Sonali will be happy to come back on stage and see if we have time to field any questions from the chat.
Yeah, thank you very much to you both. Cracking presentation. Really, really good. We have had a few questions come in for you. First one around engagement. From an engagement perspective, I would like to see a list of attendees and would love to hear what you guys think about that. Let's just see the list of attendees from the session. Josh, do you want to take that away?
Sorry, what was the question?
So the question is, from an engagement perspective, one of our audience would like to see a list of attendees for the event. And they just want to know what your thoughts were on that, of actually showing all the attendees of the event.
Well, so lots of platforms do offer that. So I think that's really useful, to be honest. Like when we attend events, particularly lots of online events, I might just go for an hour or two to see a couple of specific sponsors, to see one or two specific sessions, and then being able to network with two or three different people. So again, we would always recommend designing experiences in a way that can be flexible and accommodating.
Fantastic.
I
And from a interaction perspective, in terms of the audience, how often should speakers actually interact with an audience to maximize attention and engagement?
So I'm happy to jump in there. So it's something that we didn't actually mention, but I think for great virtual events and hybrid events, speaker coaching is a core component, and having great hosts that can tie the experience together and interact with both sets of audiences and really make them feel engaged really helps to enhance the attendee experience so significantly. And providing interactive entertainment for so your online audience feel truly part of that experience is another fantastic component. So I think the more great hosts and great speakers can interact with both sets of audiences, the better the experience becomes. I think people's standards are very high. We have things like Netflix and Amazon Prime readily available at our fingertips. So it's those incremental changes that we can make to the experiences by providing speaker coaching to the people that are presenting, by having a great host that ties everything together, and by providing interactive entertainment, which makes the overall experience far more dynamic and engaging, will help drive such great ROI.
Fantastic.
And I think one of the
and I
elements.
think the final point, there's been a lot of discussion in the chat about having captions on the screen, or of course, for accessibility. And we're just noticing that there's not actually that option today. Just what are your thoughts on that? Was there any reason why we didn't push for that? Just obviously specifically based around the topic you guys are delivering today. Sonali, have you got any thoughts on that?
Definitely. Closed captioning is, I think it's really important, not just because it is an element required for people with disability, but for people choosing, to watch a content in a particular way. For example, a lot of new parents, they still want to watch the event videos, they still want to attend the videos, but they cannot turn on the sound. So closed captioning can definitely be helpful for those people who want to just be a part of the interactivity and knowledge transfer. I'm not sure if there's any particular reason why we didn't switch on the closed captioning for our session. Our apologies if that was something that we didn't switch it on at our end, but yes, this is a great learning moment for us and for everyone out there, that one of the key elements of making sure accessibility and inclusivity is considered is that it's not just the responsibility of the event organizer and the host, but us as speakers as well. And we take this as a learning from here on. Events, they teach you so many things every single day with every single experience. So thank you so much.
And I absolutely agree. Like you say, we are all still learning as well. So now we totally take on board your point there. So thank you very much. I think time-wise, we will have to wrap that up, guys. Once again, thank you to Sonali and to Josh there for that presentation. Really appreciate it, guys. Thank you very much for being part of Event Tech Live 21.
Thanks very much.
Thank you so much.
Cool. So what we're going to do now is take a short break. We are going to have a technical demonstration, but rejoin us again on the main stage at 12 o'clock. We've got sustainability in the hybrid event era. If you want to get involved